Brenda Chabot. Under the same-sex marriage and LGBT issues, do you support Governor Brown's executive decision to overturn the California Constitutional Amendment, Prop 8, and legalize same-sex marriage in California?
Jerry Brown and Kamala Harris are legally obligated to implement and defend the laws of the state of California, regardless of whether or not they agree with those laws. It's very disappointing that they have chose otherwise.
Please hold your applause. To Dr. Kathy Henry. In June, a Los Angeles, California Superior Court judge ruled that California's state teacher tenure layoff and dismissal law infringed upon students' opportunity to receive equal public education and was therefore unconstitutional. What reforms would you make to the teacher's tenure law to ensure a quality public education for all students?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. The speaker's too far away from me.
I apologize. I'll restate the question.
So what are we under?
Under education. I apologize, Dr. Henry. In June, a Los Angeles, California Superior Court judge ruled that California's state teacher tenure layoff and dismissal law infringed upon students' opportunity to receive equal public education and was therefore unconstitutional. What reforms would you make to the teacher's tenure law to ensure quality public education for all students?
Well, this deals with contract law, and we need to review and examine whether or not it's about going back to the bargaining table, which everybody agreed to, and see if we can agree. Because is it about tenure, or is it about that the process for performance evaluation is what it's about? So whether you have 18 months or you have 3 years, if you don't have the process in place to do an actual performance of a teacher, that may be the issue, and that's what needs to be examined.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. We're going to do the support or oppose element at this time. We'll start with Dr. Henry. We're under education. State laws requiring public schools to teach that same-sex marriage and LGBT lifestyles are socially acceptable behavior without risk warnings and opt-outs.
This is one of those, it depends. This has been decided in the courts, it's case law. So as a legislator, I would support it. As an individual, no.
To Mrs. Chabot, support or oppose mandatory state adoption of Common Core state standards?
Oppose.
To Mr. Conaway, transgender bathroom law, support or oppose?
I support it because it's consistent with the civil rights laws that have been drafted. Does that mean that the laws can't be revisited at a state level? Yes, they can.
And to Mike Starringworth, support or oppose school voucher programs?
Support.
Thank you. Please keep your applause towards the end. Thank you. Now that we're back down here on this end, we'll start with Mike Starringworth. Mark Steinhardt here. What sort of Medi-Cal reform do you support?
Well, I personally think it's bad business for government to tell doctors how to perform their job. I think that it's the role of government to, in most cases, get out of the way of business. And in other cases, since there is effectively a role for government, to be as effective and efficient in that role as possible. I do believe that there is a commitment and a contract of a safety net for our senior community. I do believe that that has been part of the covenant that we've had as people have paid into the Social Security system, as they have paid in with their taxes, that there has been that agreement that that will be maintained and honored. And I do believe a contract made is a contract honored. But I do not believe in the ever-growing expansion of government. I do not believe that the way it has continuously expanded is what's in the best interest of our medical community. And ultimately, we understand that if we create a situation where our doctors are not benefiting from what they do, they will not do what we need them to for our benefit. We have seen it in other states where doctors have moved out. They have chosen to retire early. They have decided after as many years of education and expense and basically debt that they have had to take on to practice medicine, they are not there to be at the whim of legislators dictating how they run their practices. That's it, thank you.
And to Mr. Bob Conway, what sort of Medicare, staying under healthcare and medical research, what sort of Medicare reform do you support or maintain to maintain solvency of Medicare?
It's solvent through 2033, based upon even the most dire predictions. There are, HR 676, which was a single payer bill that was introduced by Conyers, which is extending Medicare for all, would be actually more cost effective. The issue, I think, that comes in terms of concerns about after 2033 is whether or not we take the cap off of the tax, the Medicare tax, for incomes of $117,000 or more. I would be in support of that if that was the only way to do it. But one of the things that I want to emphasize to everybody here, our wars have cost the Medicare trust fund dearly. While it doesn't show up on the balance sheet for the United States in terms of looking at debt, $2.7 trillion that are taken out of Medicare to fund the war. And that money has been taken out as a form of a treasury certificate. It's not even a full-blown, investment certificate or something that has to be honored. It's the good faith and credit of the Department of Treasury. I would submit that we need to start ramping down that debt, and we need to start looking at ways to start paying back the Social Security Trust Fund so that it has its own independent source and can extend itself on the money that we basically have pilfered from it to pay for these very costly wars. And I think that we need to look along those lines, and this actually gets into the total budget process, to pay $27,000 to $35,000 a month to a scout sniper who's retired from the military to do what our GIs are doing for $3,000 or $4,000 is a fiscal question that needs to be examined in Congress. Yes, we can provide military services for our basically our power projection, but let's use our men and women in uniform to do it. Let's don't go to basically mercenaries that we pay 10 times more to. That'll help the Social Security Trust Fund process because it won't have to borrow against it.
To Brenda Chabot, staying with healthcare and medical research, do you support the Affordable Care Act as currently enacted? And if not, would you defund it, modify it, or repeal it?
No, do not support. And whatever it takes to get rid of Obamacare and reform our healthcare system.
To Dr. Henry, under Social Security and pension reform, what additional state employee pension reform should be enacted?
You have to repeat it. I don't even know where you are at this point.
No problem, I apologize. This is related to Social Security and pension reform. What additional state employee pension reform should be enacted?
Okay. What should be happening is that they currently are actually paying back slowly by slowly. They are participating, and the employees in the state are participating in paying back their pension. The issue is that they gave away the store, and they did that through collective bargaining, and so now it's back to the bargaining table, and that's a reality when you participate in collective bargaining. So you have to go back to the bargaining table, you have to rework it, and you have to rework the pension. Because at this point, current workers are paying back some of their pension. They have to negotiate with the unions, but those who are already on their pensions, you really can't take that away from them.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. All right, so we'll go with the support or oppose question. Quick answer. The first to Dr. Henry, related to support or oppose the California Bullet Train high-speed rail.
time.
No problem. This is a support or oppose related to the California bullet train or high-speed rail.
I'm sorry, I can't hear because of the placement of the speaker, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. This is related to support or oppose the California bullet train or high-speed rail.
The California bullet train, is this about what we need to have happen, or is it about long-term planning? The most important need that we have right now is water. I don't support.
Thank you, Mrs. Chabot. Support or oppose reduction in corporate taxes at state or federal level?
Support. It's shameful that the United States has the highest corporate taxes in the developed world. One of the biggest ways to reduce our deficit is to lower our corporate tax rate to a level that brings overseas dollars back to the United States.
To Bob Conway, support or oppose a balanced budget amendment for our state or federal constitution?
Well, state is the state's business. In fact, they have to balance it unless they have some creative accountings. But the federal government, no, because we need the flexibility to respond to things like the Ebola crisis. We got to spend a lot of money to contain it. That's going to be capped off. It's not even within the military budget, which is the only thing exempt from the balanced budget amendment. So I submit it's constraining, and it could hurt the security of this country by limiting Congress's ability to raise funds to attack problems as they come up.
And to Mark Steinnorth, support or oppose physician-assisted suicide bill?
Oppose.
So starting with Mr. Steinnorth on illegal immigration, what efforts would you support to deal with illegal immigration?
Thank you, that's a great question. Okay, legal immigration I think is really two parts. There's the issue of legal immigration and there's the issue of our social welfare system. Because my wife was born in Leon, Guanajuato. She actually immigrated legally to this country, went through the process, and I was not married to her at the time, but when my mother-in-law went through the process from resident alien to legal citizen, my wife and I were married, so I went through the process with her. As a business owner, I've sponsored immigrants to go through the legal immigration process, and there's a cap on the legal immigration system where a certain amount per country are allowed to come in at any given time. I have one case in point. I had a tremendous designer for my advertising agency. From the host country where his home country, there was a cap. Every year when that cap went up to the lottery system, within 2 minutes, Microsoft had absorbed all of the possible entries. It cost him $8,000 a year to keep a lawyer on retainer, and he did it for 5 years. That's a total of $40,000 before he decided to leave, go back to his home country, taking that skill set with him. To deal with the illegal immigration situation, we need to cut back on the social network where we give away the farm to anyone who just shows up. My wife's family in Mexico are very, very conservative, and they don't understand why we in America, the North as they call it, why are we giving everything away to the poverty-stricken that have decided to come north of the border? They don't understand it themselves. Believe it or not, there is a middle class and an upper class in Mexico and South America. They are not choosing to come to California or to the United States. Only the ones that don't have employment are choosing to come here. And because we have too rich of a social net system without any restrictions whatsoever, we will continually attract people from all countries.
Thank you, Mr. Steinnorth. To Bob Conway, under crime and prison reform, AB 109, prison realignment, has resulted in early release of a large number of nonviolent offenders from prison as a means of controlling overpopulation in state prisons. What is your view on the success or failure of this law and its effect on public safety?
Well, first, AB 109 is a state issue, but I'll address the general concepts of it. I happen to have been in San Francisco in a case, and I met with the group that actually was discussing implementation of AB 109. And And the problems with AB 109 were the following. Number one, there was a one-time pass down, although it turned out to be really 2 or 3 times with the supplemental appropriations that came to the county. Secondly, it was designed to expand creative sentencing and supervision in halfway houses. Instead, the county of San Bernardino, for reasons that they're finding out wasn't so bright, they bought a rundown prison in Adelanto that had been owned by the Adventist Church called Maranatha. They spent so much money, there were cost overruns to the tune of $40 million. The county was not in the business of running a state prison, which is really what this ultimately became. I think the language in the law gave far too much discretion. There's things in the law that have not been implemented, such as the judges having discretion to do alternative sentencing. They're scared that they're not going to get reelected if they do. That's a problem. So if you pass a law with its own seeds of destruction planted into the bed, if you would, of flowers, the flowers ain't going to grow. And that's what's happened. It's been a boondoggle. There's been a lot of mismanagement of funds, and is the concept unfortunately necessary? Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because you have over-prosecution that takes place. As opposed to someone being charged with, say, breaking and entering a burglary, they're charged with 5 or 6 or 7 other charges, which increase the cost for the public defender, which increase the cost for the district attorney, and also has the effect of potentially increasing the sentencing time because of determinate sentencing rules. So I think it's a comprehensive problem. It requires a comprehensive solution, and if this is an example of bumper sticker fiscalism, it really was. I don't think it was done right. The motive was pretty simple. We can't continue to bleed our educational budget to pay for prisons.
To Brenda Chabot, staying with crime and prison reform, what additional steps must the state of California take to control prison overpopulation, yet preserve public safety from criminals?
I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I did not ask my husband about that question, so I'm going to refrain from answering it.
To Dr. Kathy Henry, in July 2014, staying with public safety, in July 2014, a U.S. District Court determined that the California death penalty was unconstitutional on grounds that it was arbitrary and plagued with delays. Do you support the death penalty? What efforts will you make to streamline and shorten the appeals process and ensure that murderers are put to death?
Well, this is a double-edged sword. The first thing is that currently the death penalty does fail because there is no, the appeals process goes on for too long. So then if we allow to shorten the appeals process, does that mean then that we're going to hire all of these more judges and we're going to have all these more court clerks? So on the one hand, you're saying that, you know, you want to cut taxes, you want to cut benefits. I don't know, are we for or against the death penalty? Yeah, I'm for the death penalty. But again, what are we going to do to shorten the appeals process? How much money are we going to spend into doing that?
And so we'll go into the support or oppose section, starting with Dr. Henry. Support or oppose government funding or support of embryonic stem cell research?
Stem cell research? It is stem cell research. Do I support stem cell research then? Do we want to allow individuals to have skin grafts? And do we want to allow individuals who have lung problems to maybe create a new lobe? Embryonic stem cell research, we don't want to use the embryos.
To Brenda Chabot, support or oppose means testing and determination of Social Security benefits?
Support.
To Bob Conway, support or oppose partial privatization of Social Security benefits into individual accounts?
Opposed.
And to Mark Steinnorth, federal or state banning human cloning? Support or oppose, I apologize, sir.
Okay, so I oppose federal or state human cloning. It's a little twisted. Make sure. Yeah.
Starting with Mark Steinnorth, the next question related to gun rights. California has some of the most restrictive gun laws of any state in the union. Many of these laws are currently being challenged in court. Do you support or oppose the current gun law restrictions in the state of California?
Is this oh good, I have 2 minutes. Absolutely oppose. I'm a gun enthusiast. I grew up in a military family where we are taught the value and that a firearm is a tool. And with every tool, you're taught how to use it appropriately. And that there are negative aspects to that tool if you don't use it appropriately, but if you do use it appropriately, it can be very beneficial. I also am a proud CCW carrier, and not here today. But just so you know, I have my license. I do believe that that also is a right, and I do believe that that's what every person that has the ability should go out and seek and ask our Sheriff's Department and make sure that you exercise that right. I do believe also that we should have the right to ammunition. I'm opposed to the fact that we've had so many state regulations on the sale of ammunition to where now we eliminate lead-based ammunition. As a gun enthusiast, I do like to use some of the lesser expensive ammunition. Unfortunately now, it seems to be it's just not available anymore. So there are issues that I think we can all agree on. And I do believe that we can all agree that the Second Amendment was there for a reason. And we all need to do what we can to defend the Second Amendment. Thank you.
To Bob Conaway, the Hamas-Palestinian, this is under terrorism and foreign affairs. The Hamas-Palestinian organization Unity Government is currently receiving approximately $500 million a year in foreign aid from the United States. They have been building terrorist tunnels and shooting thousands of missiles into Israel with a stated goal of the complete destruction of the state of Israel. Will you vote to defund the Palestinian organization of all foreign aid until they stop these terrorist acts, demilitarize and recognize the sovereignty of Israel?
About 6 questions. Sovereignty of Israel, absolutely. Let's go backwards. Secondly, the Hamas is a party, as well as a militant organization within its ranks. The funding of basically the Palestinian state, if you want to call it that, the Gaza Strip area, is the majority, if you would, party. I don't want to use any analogies to any other country, happens to be Hamas, as is the majority party Hamas in Lebanon, and which has been a fiscal partner in many respects to the United States in terms of operations in that area. So the characterization of Hamas as a terrorist organization digging tunnels isn't completely correct. There is a government, a political party that does run the government, and to the extent that giving them assistance to try to control their country is in fact A, successful, and B, showing signs of some progress, I think it would be foolhardy to destabilize that political party's effort to try to stabilize the region. I've had a lot of briefings on the Middle East affairs, and yes, there are problems with the terrorists, and we need to assist Israel where we can. Not that they need a lot of help. Most of the time, they just need some of our munitions and some of our equipment to be able to carry it off. They are the preeminent people in so many different aspects of warfare. We have a lot to learn from them still. And I wish we as a country would listen to them and their example.
30 seconds.
And follow it much better. With that said, is Hamas a destabilizing influence? Yes. So are a lot of other things. The Ba'athist Party within Iraq, the Ba'athist Party within Syria. So we have to examine how these are changing and evolving and decide where our money is best spent. And if it's taking it away, you bet. But if it's providing us a platform for some stability and some communication, we'd be foolhardy not to continue it.
To Brenda Chabot, under military and veterans benefits, what additional initiatives would you support to improve the VA healthcare system?
My husband returned from Iraq in 2008, and upon his return, it took 9 months for him to get into the VA hospital system. 9 months. You've heard the horror stories of people speaking about their loved ones who come back who never made it to their first appointment. So luckily for my husband, he was healthy enough to make it to his first appointment 9 months later. My husband's been very vocal about the broken VA system. He supports the doctors, the nurses, the staff. They're all doing a good job. It's not that, it's the system that is broken. And he has spoken out. He'll be the biggest advocate to get the system back working again. As a patient at the VA, he experienced numerous nightmare situations. This is a national disgrace. There are many, many good doctors, nurses, and pharmacists in the VA, but again, the system is broken.
To Dr. Henry, under terrorism and foreign affairs, what efforts would you support to fight terrorism and prevent terrorist attacks in the United States and California?
We have the Homeland Security. I believe that they should be supported, that we need to look at any areas, once you get to the state legislature on the inside, and you're looking out. And I believe that we have to see where we are, if we need any bolstering, but Homeland Security is part of our defense, and we should be following their lead.
So we'll go with the support or oppose section now, starting with Dr. Henry. This goes under crime and prison reform. Back to, this is just support or oppose. Legalization of marijuana for personal recreational use.
Oppose.
And for Ms. Chabot, a pathway to citizenship amnesty for illegal immigrants in the United States.
I'm gonna get his exact words, 1 second. Okay, here it is. My husband does not support amnesty. Citizenship should be earned.
And for Bob Conway, support or oppose Prop 47, which defelonizes crimes of personal drug possession and other nonviolent crimes such as petty theft and check fraud.
AB 109 was properly handled. We would need Proposition 47 to be discussed. I support the idea that something has to be done because we can't count on Sacramento to get it done.
And for Mark Steinor, support or oppose reforming the California Three Strikes You're Out law to give greater sentencing discretion to judges.
Oppose.
And we'll start again with Mark Steinor. This will be the final set of questions from this packet, and we'll go to, well, we might just have enough time to get to the questions from the community, one or two questions. Related to water, for Mike Steinor, California is once again in the midst of a major drought, seriously impacting farming and ranching and resulting in residential water restrictions. California has not built a reservoir in 35 years. California has several water bond proposals on the ballot to enhance water storage capacity. Which one do you support?
Well, I am supporting Proposition 1, and I'd like to explain why. I understand there's elements of Proposition 1 that we may not find as agreeable as we would like it to be, but we have to take the step towards water storage. We understand it's a $7 billion proposition, and about $4 billion of that is geared towards water storage. As much as I may disagree with the other $3 billion, we have to work towards making sure that we have sustainable, safe, clean drinking water in the future. And subsequently, it's one of those situations where I may have to hold my nose a little bit, but the storage water is that necessary for us to be able to move forward on this issue. If you notice, pretty much every single member of the Assembly, -2, voted in favor, and every member of the State Senate. It was something that was negotiated till the wee hours of the night. Not everybody ended up with something that they felt was to their best liking, but it was certainly something that was necessary and subsequently tolerable.
This is directed towards Bob Conway under military and veterans benefits. Should we continue deployment of troops in Afghanistan?
Second part of the question, I'm sorry.
Oh, I apologize. Should we continue deployment of troops in Afghanistan?
Well, from the beginning, my view on Afghanistan was, we needed to go in to basically get the people that had masterminded, 9/11. We had a consensus and support of the world. We accomplished that objective with most of what we've done. Regrettably, with the mines and valleys and tunnels that exist between Pakistan and Afghanistan, many of them moved, and we ultimately were able to secure Osama bin Laden in the adjoining country, Pakistan. I think we have a security interest there that we need to recognize. One of them is we have extensive resources, natural gas resources, which go through that. Unocal developed the pipeline in Afghanistan. So there's jobs there, there's energy management issues there. There's a very massive copper mine in that area, which has been developed by the Communist Chinese government, which is a major source for high-grade ore. So there's certainly resources there, but I think the role of the United States needs to be more withdrawn to special applications. Special forces for specific threats that we can do, we should base ourselves there, and I think that's part of what we're trying to do with the Karzai government. That's going to be necessary for as long as we're going to be around, because the very nature of Muslim blood oaths is that we're going to have to be dealing with their vendettas, their vengeance against the United States, the great Satan as they refer to them, as their reference is. So I think that we have to be there. But deployment of ground troops per se, no. Special forces, I think it's inescapable that we're going to have to continue to have them where they are. And available for use. That means, of course, supporting the bases and facilities that are there. Are there ways for us to become less obtrusive and less interfering with their government? You bet. There's experience that can be drawn upon that over the history and time of the countries that have had the best success as, quote, occupying or friendly powers within the country. So that there's ways to do it. We need to have an open and honest dialogue about ways to do it and how it should be done.
Thank you, sir. To Brenda Chabot, under military and veterans benefits, do you believe that we have adequate funding of the Department of Defense to maintain our military might for self-defense and to deter military aggression of other nations, such as Russia, China, North Korea, or the Islamic State?
Absolutely no, do not have enough funding. Again, my husband specializes in counterterrorism. He's an intelligence officer went to Iraq with Special Forces. He wouldn't tell you this because he is pretty humble, but he actually wrote the strategy to defeat Al-Qaeda in Iraq in 2008 when the surge occurred. So it was part of that team that was there. We need to restore funding to the Department of Defense, and my husband has the experience and the knowledge to understand and to explain this to other members in the congressional representatives.
And to Dr. Henry, this is under gun rights. California is a may issue state, which means it may issue permits to carry concealed guns, leaving this to county and local authorities to decide if CCW permits will be issued. Would you support or oppose bills that would change that issue and make California a shall issue state for qualified applicants for CCW permits across all counties and local jurisdictions?
Again, this depends. What's a qualified applicant? So until you identify what a qualified applicant is, it makes it problematic to say you shall issue. Shall issue leads into too many problems that they may not be qualified. How quickly are we rushing to judgment that, oh, well, they're qualified, we're a shall issue state, let's go forward. So I would have to have a lot more information to find out what it meant by qualified applicants.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. We'll begin with the support or oppose briefly, starting with Dr. Henry. Under all these questions relate to illegal immigration. And again, this is support or oppose, Dr. Henry. In-state college tuition rates for illegal immigrants.
Oppose.
And to Ms. Chabot, financial aid benefits for state colleges and universities under the DREAM Act.
I again apologize, I did not ask my husband about that, so I'm going to defer on that question.
Into Bob Conway, this is still under illegal immigration, support or oppose, California Trust Act, which prohibits local law enforcement from detaining illegal immigrants for deportation when arrested for minor offenses.
Well, it gives options to law enforcement. I mean, if they're a threat to the community. I mean, I personally practiced in the immigration courts in the state, and I can assure you they're full of people that have committed crimes of violence that they are detained. They are detained. So, and that's under the current system. So, it has its exceptions. Certainly, the officers can use their professional judgment when it's appropriate.
Thank you, sir. And to Mark Steinworth, California law granting, support or oppose, California law granting driver's licenses to illegal immigrants.
Oppose.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we would like to ask our panel here to give their closing remarks. We will start with Mark Steinworth. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Again, I want to say thank you very much to Emmanuel Baptist Church for allowing us to have this forum, to everybody that attended, to my other candidate panelists. You know, it's been an absolute blessing during this campaign. We have had a tremendous amount of outpouring of support. We've had outpouring of support from the community. We have a tremendous group of volunteers and interns that start from high school all the way up through college. It's been an exciting process. And when you ask them, why is it that they're spending their weekends and their evenings making phone calls, knocking on doors, they say it better than I possibly could. They say, because I want the same opportunities to have a job. I want the same opportunities to be prosperous in California. The same opportunities that my wife and I had, she being an immigrant from Mexico, myself, growing up in a military family, settling in, having roots, building a business, helping other families build their businesses, growing jobs across the state, throughout the United States. It's one of those experiences that can happen in California if we allow it to. But Sacramento, being as broken as it is doing everything it can to get in the way. And we have to find people that have private sector experience and enough public sector experience that it hasn't corrupted them so that they can go up there and make a difference. Now, I'm proud of the fact that I've been in business or in the industry for over 22 years successfully. And I've done very well. My wife and I worked together. We were very happy with what we've achieved. And then I've been a council member for 2 years in the city of Rancho Cucamonga, where we have embraced private sector ideology into the public sector successfully. And I believe that that concept of bringing private sector solutions to the public sector will be effective for our state. Because folks, the businesses want to stay here. We just need to give them the reason to. And I'd like to just say thank you to my team. Thank you to everybody that's participated in the campaign. And to my wife and my children who are at home tonight, just say thank you very much and God bless you.
Bob Conway, your closing remarks.
Sometimes we live at the edge of political rhetoric. There was a UCLA study that was issued a day before a forum where J.O. Remolte got up on the stand and basically said the same words. And he came from UCLA, he's a Bruin. And the study basically said that we have recovered as a state from where we were before the crash in 2008. So the dire predictions, granted, the Inland Empire has been lagging behind, but it is also the greatest machine and engine for growth probably in the state. I tell you this because we need to be able to have dialogue and talk about what's success. For example, we have a balanced budget in California. We have a surplus in California. We're moving forward with development of ideas and issues that are innovative, such as the peripheral canal concept to try to manage water through drought years. We're innovators. I'm proud to be a Californian. And Californians are hardworking, innovative, aggressive, and then we see innovation and aggressiveness here at the table. So I submit to you that we do have the ideas, we do have the energy. We just need to get on the same page as a state, and we need to get on the same page on issues that count to Americans. Not to political agendas, not to parties, not to rhetoric, not to philosophies, but what Americans want. They want to be secure. They want our services that we've committed ourselves to work, Social Security, Medicare. We want to see veterans benefits funded. We don't want to see buildings built for the veterans benefits. We want to see doctors hired. We want to see medical facilities actually responding in a timely and prompt fashion. Those are things that we've committed ourselves to, and our opportunity, our challenge, and my challenge if I got elected to Congress, with certainly your assistance and help, would be to make sure that our common dreams as a national government, the people in a national government, are met.
And Brenda Chabot, your closing remarks?
Thank you for allowing me to be here on behalf of my husband, Paul Chabot. It's an honor, it truly is. My husband would be honored to have earned your vote in this election. He is a military officer, a small business owner, and a reserve deputy sheriff. He has the background and experience, and he will be ready on day one for U.S. Congress. Also, Paul opposes Planned Parenthood and is endorsed by the National Right to Life Council, the International Faith-Based Coalition, and according to the Christian Election Forum, Paul received the highest possible rating for strong values. Thank you and God bless.
And Dr. Kathleen Henry, your closing remarks.
I also believe in service and making a difference, and I serve my community in a variety of diverse areas. I'm a member of the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity. I'm on the steering committee for the Women's Leadership Council. I'm Arrowhead United Way. I'm an ambassador for my chamber. I'm a Kiwanian. I sit on as a member of the Economic Development Corporate Training Foundation. I really do believe in service. The reason why I'm running for the State Assembly is that as a trustee and as a community service member, I'm out on the community all the time. And I see a great need in our district. And I don't see that, that anything has been brought back from the State Assembly in a number of years for this district. And we suffered through 2009 on our own. We got it through together, which is great. But now we need to have somebody who wants to work for the people of this district on a long-term basis, not a short-term, and ensure we're moving forward with the state. One of the things that I see in this area is that we need to have economic diversity, and that is through a variety of industries. So we need to have a variety of jobs. We can see that if we focus on the one particular industry, like transportation, logistics industry, we have that gas tax that's looming in January. What's going to happen to an area where they have suddenly, now we have a tax, and now what are we going to do? So, and believe me, I made my pledge several months ago to ask the governor to take that off the table in January. I think that a lot of our economic diversity goes back to education and how we're going to accomplish that, to have an educated, and I think we need to have our budget back. I think that we need to have vocational education training and improve on our skills. I also believe that we need to solve the water problem by continuing to talk about it after it starts raining. I'd appreciate your vote.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. This is the conclusion of our event. Let's give a big round of applause for our panel.
And thank you for all coming here, and could we give a good round of applause for Brian, for moderating? And also, thank you for being such an attentive audience and coming out here tonight. It's very important to get first-hand knowledge of the views of the candidates, and I urge each and every one of you to go out and vote. Make sure you vote either by absentee ballot or at the polls for November 4th. Thank you very much, and good night.